That Rancino, and I am here with Ian Usher, one of the stars of my book. He is Mr. November in my book.
Hello there.
Which I think was a very fun chapter. And I first met Ian through the internet, through his blog. So Ian, tell our audience here about your history.
Okay, well, I come from England originally. I moved to Australia with my wife in 2001. And unfortunately 5 years later things changed for us and we ended up separating. A couple of years after that I ended up with a house and furniture that I decided I was going to get rid of, and made the decision to put my whole life up for sale on eBay. It resulted in a lot of international press and publicity, and then I followed that adventure up with I wondered what I was going to do next. I made a list of 100 goals, 100 things I always wanted to do, set myself a timeline of 100 weeks and set off to do that. And Yvette and I crossed paths in LA in November 2008.
Right. And we actually communicated a little bit before that because I knew about Ian from reading about him, and at the same time I was writing my book and just trying to do an adventure a month and have a date a month, and I thought it would be fun to do that with Ian, but I was very tentative about it. And I read his blog, and I'll tell you one of the posts that really moved me was right before we met, because he was in the Grand Canyon and he had invited people to do his different goals with him. And the Grand Canyon, why don't you tell us about that post?
Well, yes, I headed to the Grand Canyon, and I bought an RV and was travelling across the States in this big RV and meeting a lot of people on the way, and had some wonderful experiences on the way. And part of my philosophy of what I was doing was always inviting people to come and join me on anything I was doing. The Grand Canyon, unfortunately, I ended up on my own at the Grand Canyon, and that evening I parked up the RV in the park there, and I walked out to the rim of the canyon, and it was a beautiful orange sunset, and people were sort of sat arm in arm, or couples walking along hand in hand, and it was a pretty low point for me. I didn't want to be there on my own. I didn't enjoy the experience of being on my own among all these other people who were coupled up, and it felt pretty sort of melancholy, that experience. And you know, sort of I knew really who I wanted to be there with me, and that was part of my life that was now gone, and that was impossible. So it was a pretty sort of sad occasion, although very spectacular to see too.
Yeah, and I think that seeing beautiful things and being alone sometimes can bring on that melancholy. And when I read that post, it really moved me, because I know that experience, and I thought, well, I'm going to take this risk and actually try to meet this guy. And so it just coincidentally, we both were going to be in LA in the next couple of weeks, and we did meet, and a friendship formed. It was great. I mean, I just immediately, it was very easy to talk to Ian. And one of the things I wanted to ask him is the secret behind that, because it's so hard. Usually you meet someone and there's chit chat, and it's really hard to kind of go beyond that and form a friendship. So I think it's really interesting that you're able to go all over the place and form these friendships. And can you tell us the secret in that? How do you do that?
I don't know if really there's any secret. I think I'm just interested in other people, and different people have different lives, and I find that fascinating, you know, the different lives and adventures other people have. And I think if you were genuinely interested in other people and their life, then perhaps that's reciprocated, and they're interested in you. If you are good at listening to what other people are telling you, then I think that sort of reflects well on you, and it makes it very easy to get on with people. If you find things that they do that you find interesting, then for me, I find it easy to get on with other people, and conversely, those people seem to think that I'm pretty easy to get on with too.
And so when you were doing your travels, was there always somebody that signed up ahead of time or emailed and said they were going to do it with you, or did sometimes you meet people just when you were there and say, there's no one on this goal, I'm going to just find somebody and share it with?
Yeah, sometimes a bit of both, really. In the early days, because of the huge publicity from the Life for Sale, my first journey, I spent 7 months travelling around the world, and there was people lined up most of the way to sort of meet and hang out with and achieve goals with and do stuff with, which was really cool. Since then, I guess the following's dropped off a little. I still do meet people and I still get emails from people, but a lot of the times I just turn up somewhere and you get to meet people there. For example, I went on a trek to Everest Base Camp recently, and just got paired up with another guy who was doing the same trek as me, and we had a great time for 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm. And so, obviously we had a great romance, but I wanted to talk to you about the romances along the way when you were doing this and when you're meeting people. Is there that awkwardness of people wondering if it's for a romantic reason, if it happens to be a single woman, and were there times where romances developed, and how did you deal with being a single guy and meeting these people and trying to determine whether or not this was going to be a romance or a friendship?
Yeah, it's been difficult to find a bit of balance, I guess, with that, and that I've always been open to romance happening along the way, and that's been part of the fun of the journey. Is these potential for romance along the way. It's very difficult, I guess, for me because the journey means that I'm only going to be with someone for a brief period and then move on. And I guess it would be difficult if I met someone that I really, really liked, and then 3 or 4 days later I have to sort of move on and look towards the next goal and the next set of people. And I have met some fantastic people along the way, and a couple of great girls along the way. And yeah, there's one happened towards the end here that may develop further. So it's been great timing, really, but a lot of fun along the way as well.
Okay, good. Well, so I know we've been here, it's great that we developed this friendship and have stayed in touch, and we've been talking about your next venture after 100 weeks. Why don't you tell? Well,
the end goal of this whole journey, I guess, is to write a book about the adventures from the unfortunate separation from my wife right through to the end of the 100 weeks and the goals that I've tried to do. So it's been very interesting to talk to Yvette, who's already a published author. I've had a lot of good advice and tips and hints, and I'm now quite enthusiastic about getting on with my project. My book, I think, is tentatively called A Life Sold, and tells the story of what happens to a guy who sells his life on eBay and then sets off with a list of things to do. So watch this space. A couple of months. I plan a couple of months. My journey finishes on the 4th of July. That's the end of 100 weeks. And I plan to take a couple of months and simply sit in a quiet log cabin and write the book.
And it's a fascinating story. I've been following along the blog, and great writing and a good mix of humor and inspiration. So I be looking for the book. I'll be looking forward to it.
Well, the book, I think, is going to be quite different from the blog. I've fairly deliberately kept the blog just where I've been and what I've seen, and there's only been hints of the emotion behind what I'm doing in blogs like the Grand Canyon one, a couple of others. But I've kept more of that writing for the book, and the book is going to be much more emotional telling of the story and how it is to travel alone, the loneliness of travel versus the excitement of meeting new people all the time, and the eventual outcome of it all. So it'll be quite a different read to the blog, I think.
Yeah, I'll be looking forward to it. All right, thank you.
Thank you.